You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Burns and welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. Today we get the great topic of demos. This is the most probably misunderstood step in the sales process. We look at it as a checkbox item, much like the presentation. And speaking of which, I have one of the evangelists and experts in storytelling from Prezi on the B2B revenue show this week. So make sure you check that out. It'll come out on Monday of this week, which will be the 11th. Oh boy, coming up near the end of the quarter. But today we're going to be talking about demos and how to do them right. I've seen so many people do them wrong, put people to sleep, lose this incredible opportunity to communicate with your customer about what they care about. So we have somebody who does this for a lot of years. That's his sole focus, is really helping companies polish up their demo, get it right, and do what the customer wants instead of what we're showing every feature and turning it into a training class. Also, make sure you're checking out nudge.ai. They've got a great set of blog posts that they're doing about relationship selling. And I'm going to have a guest on who closed $1 million deal using Nudge to use the relationships they already had to get into accounts. If you're not using this, you're missing the boat. This is the simplest piece of AI stuff that everybody can use. And if you're doing a lot of phone work, make sure you're checking out Gong. Gong's the way to analyze your calls, to give you feedback, to give you immediate response so that you can really see how well you're doing compared to the calls that close. Your talk-to-listen ratio, the use of questions, when objections come up, when are you talking about price? This is all critical. Now, at the end of the show, I'll sum up the demo things and what I learned. And I believe me, I've given so many demos. I did it for, before I got into sales. I was a pre-sales guy. And it is a critical element, and we're really going to have a lot of fun with this interview. And I'll also update you on the classes. So here we go. I hope you'll enjoy this, and hold on to the end for the updates. Hey, Peter, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Well, it's my pleasure. Let me ask in return, have you ever seen a bad software demonstration?
After 25 years of doing it and probably 2 or 3 years where that was the only thing I had to do, oh yeah, I've seen a lot of bad ones.
Okay, good. Generally speaking, when I ask that question, I either get a laugh, a cry, a wry smile, or an answer to something like, yeah, and I've probably done thousands of them myself. Well, my purpose in life is to fix that problem and make traditional, boring, and painful software demos crisp, compelling, and surprisingly effective. That's what we do.
Okay. And how'd you get into this?
How'd I get into this? Being on the customer side of the table during a CRM purchasing process, I began to realize that it took, I think the term is freaking forever, for the vendor to get to the point of what was interesting for me as a customer to actually see in the demo. And I realized that traditional demos teach people how to do something, and only at the very end of the process do they begin to contemplate what good things it actually enables for that customer. And so that effectively drove the first few ideas of the methodology, which was, in a nutshell, to take a traditional demo and to turn it upside down. The phrase I love to offer is do the last thing first. Do the last thing first. So does that make sense so far?
It depends what the last thing is. What's the last thing?
Very well. I'll give it. So continuing the example. So a CRM system, traditional demo of a CRM system. And bear in mind that I, in the audience, was the ranking person and effectively is the head of sales. So what am I interested in? I'm interested in the forecast and the pipeline and managing the process and my suite of salespeople going forward. Well, the CRM demo started off with, let me show you how to put together a new record for a new customer, a new account. Let's add a few more records to that account. Let's drive a campaign and marketing to that account. Let's track the responses. Let's do a few tunings of that. And guess what? After an hour of that demo, we were just about to get to the reports and dashboards that would talk about forecast and pipeline and solidity of various deals. And guess what? We ran out of time.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, the guy doing the demo says, oh, looks like we ran out of time before we got to the best stuff.
I see. That's the end. Start with the end in mind, huh?
Start with the end in mind. So what we teach people to do is to do sufficient discovery to understand what it is the customer is looking for in the offering. And then instead of holding it to the end of the demo meeting when the highest ranking people are gone and everybody else's brains are mush, we teach people present it right up front, right away, so the audience can see exactly where this is going and, more importantly, what's in it for them. And then if that end deliverable resonates, what we effectively teach people to do is to peel back the layers, but in accord with the customer's depth and level of interest. This process of turning a demo upside down results in crisp, effective demos that get the job done and yield all kinds of delightful successes.
And you've seen the popular division of labor that exists today, certainly in the SaaS space, about, I only sell to blonde people, you sell to brown-haired people on Thursday between 2 and 4. And we have these people who only give demos. Are we going in the right direction, or are we going backwards?
Well, it's a very interesting question. So I would say that in the very best case, the person who's doing a sale should also be able to do the demo. But that's only going to work where you have offerings that are technically not deep, or you've got salespeople that are very technically strong. And so it's really just not a reality today. Most typically, we have people that are professional salespeople. They get teamed up with professional pre-sales people. And in equal theory, the salesperson does a terrific job doing discovery with the customer, passes that information over to the pre-sales person, who puts together and executes a delightfully focused demo for that particular customer. Now, unfortunately, that's not reality. And what happens with most reality is that the salesperson says, hey, I've got a hot new lead, show them a demo. Yep. And then your pre-sales guy says, okay, I guess I'll show him the same old demo I always do. Yep. And what we're trying to do is to move people from what is those demos go by a variety of names. Do you know what they are?
I'll trust your vocabulary better than mine.
Okay, they variously. Here's a few: show up and throw up,
yep.
Spray and play, the technology see what sticks demo, and of course the one I like that I coined most recently is the Ikea demo, where you go into an Ikea, you try to find what you're looking for, and then how do you get out?
You have to put it together, or?
Well, if you've ever been in an Ikea and you try to find the exit, you'll find that they take you through every single department on your way out.
Oh, I see.
And that's a traditional demo. So what we're teaching people to do is to understand specific needs of a specific individual, specific job title. What's his job title? What's his industry? What goals or objectives is he seeking to achieve? What problems are getting in the way? What specific capabilities he or she is looking for? What's the value associated with making the change? Is there a critical date or event that might be driving this? And from that information, we can then teach people to put together a very focused, on-target, delightful demo that gets the job done. And interestingly, what you hear very often is people say, what used to take us an hour in a demo, now we get it done in 20, 25 minutes, and we've got time for a conversation about implementation or, if you will, real next steps. What a delight.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of times, everyone's trying to give the presentation, then the demo, and you obviously are going to run out of time. If you do it in person, at least you can sense people's reactions. Today, that's not always available. And then when you do run out of time, the only close is, send us a proposal. And then you're in the trap of you've given them everything. Now, how do you get the deal?
Absolutely. So the whole idea here is do sufficient discovery, show the end results that particular customer is looking for. So in the example of the CRM system, if you were presenting to a head of sales, show me the forecast tools. Let me take a look at the current forecast. Let me take a look at the pipeline. Let me understand which deals are sold and which deals need to be coached, what would we pull or push depending on our needs. And then we can turn things over to the people that are different job titles to look at, well, how do you get some of this information into the system? How do you run marketing campaigns and so forth? What we're really saying there is if you have, for example, 3 different constituencies, what you're really thinking in terms of is orchestrate 3 different, if you will, mini demos. One for that head of sales, one for the individual salespeople, one for the marketing person, perhaps one for sales ops, and so on. Because each of their objectives and each of their sets of needs and the capabilities they're looking for are individual and different.
Do you see a lot of people trying to turn the demo into a training class instead of a discussion?
So you can't see me, but I'm nodding my head violently in agreement.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people move from implementation services or training into pre-sales, and they are amongst the most at risk with respect to presenting demos, because your objective in a training session is to teach somebody how to use the product. And that might include setting up the system. It might include showing how to execute all the workflows. And frighteningly enough, in many cases, you're training the end users and not the people who are really the benefits consumers, the managers or executives. In a sales demo, you've got to think in reverse. You've got to think in terms of what does this person need out of the system and how do I best show them how to get there. I'll give you an interesting mantra. When we teach great demo workshops, we teach people the following phrase: fewest number of clicks. I'll say that again, fewest number of clicks to execute any particular pathway. Now think about that. There's an interesting logic behind that. Oh, still there?
Yep, I'm still here. Can you hear me? I'll edit that out. Can you hear me?
Okay, no worries. Yeah, I can hear you.
So fewest number of clicks?
Fewest number of clicks. So when you think about a training exercise, how many times have you heard a trainer say, so you can do it this way or that way? When we as the audience are thinking, I don't need 3 different ways to do this, just show me the fastest and easiest. In other words, fewest number of clicks.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through this so many times, and what I've seen, people have a separate group of pre-sales people who are trained on the demo, and that they're very rigid, or they want to be the salesperson, and they want so much information before they give the demo that they are actually getting in the way. And then you see salespeople who are either control freaks, show them this, show them this, show them this, or they leave the room and check their email while the demo's going on.
So you're evidencing many of the challenges that people face in putting together and delivering credible demos. So a couple of interesting ideas. When you mentioned that salespeople will often say, show them this, show them that, are you familiar with the term buying it back?
No.
Have you ever been in a situation where the customer, after a demo, the customer says, do you have a light version of the software?
Yeah, see, I was at the other end. I was at the kind of the use case, trying to take them from what they do today to how my product would automate that, and then the dangers of not having the product.
Well, that's all exactly the process we should be following. Where I'm going with my comment here is, many of us believe that the more capabilities in our offering, the more value it has, and therefore many salespeople say, "Show them the new biframulator capability; it's really cool." However, if the customer doesn't perceive that he needs those capabilities, it turns out that the more you show in a demo that the customer doesn't feel he or she needs, the more likely they're going to say, when it's time to negotiate that license agreement, they're going to say, you showed us a bunch of stuff we're never going to use. So, and what does the customer say next?
Can I get a discount?
Yeah, and that is called buying it back. It's a surprising thing with respect to software and demos, but as we all know, it's very real. So one of the aspects of teaching people how to put together and deliver demos is to understand, when you're talking discovery, to understand which specific capabilities this particular customer needs and therefore needs to see in the demo. And here's the discipline: to hold behind your back all the other really cool stuff that you love in your software, but that this particular customer doesn't need and doesn't care about because it's not part of their solution set. Does that resonate?
It sure does. Because I've seen the hour-long demos, and I actually started at this startup. I was one of the third round of salespeople they hired, and the CEO was this Russian engineer who was like 28, and he told me, if you don't show them all 78 of these slides, you will not win the deal. And I go, if I show them all 78 slides, I will never get a deal.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I
so
was
that's
yeah.
So that's one of the key ideas behind reteaching, if you will, demo methodology. There's a terrible thing that goes on with the evolution of demos. At that startup that you were at, the first few demos that were given when the product was new, the demos were crisp. They were short, they were focused, they were targeted. And then you got release 2.0. And then you had delivered 17 demos, and you heard questions from the audience that seemed to repeat over and over again. So we add the answers to those questions to our ever-growing demo. And by release 3, 4, and 5, and the fact that you've heard 300 questions 3 times over, what happens is we're trying to now pack about 2 hours worth of content into a 1-hour demo meeting. And the end result is we talk and mouse and talk and mouse and talk and mouse, and then we ask after about 10 to 15 minutes, so are there any questions so far? And particularly if we're over the web, what do we hear from our audience? We hear, nope, we're good.
Yeah, I mean,
so what we're trying to do is to turn this from a fire hose delivery into what is perceived to be more of a two-way, bidirectional conversation by the customer.
Yes.
So, for example, if I was demonstrating the CRM system to you, if that's the offering that we have, I might just show you a couple of key screens, since you're the VP of sales, having to do with the forecast and the pipeline and deal management. I describe what you're seeing. I would relate the value associated with that and what kinds of good things it can do for you. And then I might turn things back to you and say, so is this the kind of thing you had in mind? And you might say, yeah, that looks good. I'd say, would you like to see it in action? You say, yeah. I go into the software and I show you in the fewest number of clicks how easy it is for you as the head of sales to bring up that forecast and that pipeline. I do a quick summary, and then what happens is you say, okay, I get it. And then you think and you ask, well, can I drill down and take a look at just the Q4 pipeline? I say, absolutely. Would you like to see that? He says, let me see that. You ask, can I set up an alert so that if we reach a certain threshold, it triggers and sends me an email message? I say, yeah, absolutely. Would you like to see that? And you say, no, I'm good. I trust you. And what we've done now is we've moved from a traditional fire hose demo into what you see as a two-way bidirectional conversation. And this results in a much more effective exchange of information. Are you familiar with the Gong study on demos?
Yeah. I actually partner with Gong. And
okay.
I know pretty much everybody there, Chris Orlov and Yudi and Amit. So go ahead.
You're singing my song. So they did an analysis of, I think it was 67,149 demos, and published the results last October. And they teased out 4 key ideas that aligned with successful demos. Idea number 1 is to start with the customer's situation. It's all about the customer. In other words, put that corporate overview back behind your back and start by reviewing your understanding of the customer's situation. Once that's done, the customer's engaged and they can confirm whether or not you've captured everything accurately. And then what they call step number 2, they actually write in the report, they said, Peter Cohen in his book, Great Demo, was right. Do the last thing first. They call it the upside down demo, and it's what I've just been describing. Start with the payoff, the most valuable aspects of the offering for that particular customer, And that engages that person and gets them pulled into it. The third takeaway that they offered is what they called speaker changes per minute. And in demos, they did a subsequent study. They said, you are doing just about perfectly when in this portion of the demo, after the introduction, the review of the situation, and showing the last thing first, you should be seeing a speaker switch between you and the customer approximately every 76 seconds. 76 seconds, a minute and a quarter. If you're going longer than that, you're at risk of it turning into a fire hose and a non-effective demo. Great demo methodology that we teach maps directly and precisely to those three key ideas. So it's one thing to know in your heart, in your gut, that what you're doing is an improvement or right. It's quite another to have those ideas validated with hard data, 67,149 data points. What a delight.
Well, yeah, and it would seem obvious, but I mean, I think today sales is going in the wrong direction in that this division of labor gone mad and trying to make every sale a high velocity sale, whether it is or it isn't. Because when you have somebody who's interested, it's very different than if you have somebody who's latent, right? With it, SDRs doing the...
Absolutely. Yeah. And what you're describing here is, I'm in complete agreement. For enterprise sales, not the highly transactional sales, but enterprise sales where you're talking about an internal buying process that has to take place. The single most important element, from my perspective, of any sales process is doing discovery. And in fact, the vendor that does a better job of discovery compared to his or her competitor is in a competitively advantageous position. I'll tell you a brief story. I was doing, I had a call with a woman who had reached out to me and said, hey, I'm interested in demonstration skills training for my team. I said, terrific. So we set up a 30-minute call, and we had a 30-minute discussion largely of her situation, and she asked a few things about our workshops and offerings. And around the 25-minute mark, I said, hey, you know what? I've got a pile more questions I need to ask. And we agreed to set up a second call. Well, that second call took place about 2 days later, and about 45 minutes into that call, it was going to be about an hour, she says, you've already closed me. I said, no, I didn't, but thank you for letting me know.
Yes.
And the point here is, if you do a great job in discovery, your customer is going to feel so comfortable based on the questions you've asked and your understanding of his or her situation that whatever you propose will be likely a good solution for their situation. And that's effectively where she was. So that's one of my personal mantras is the best demo is no demo if you can get it done in discovery. But I am all about demos. So unfortunately or fortunately, great discovery is rarely done. And the end result is, okay, now we really have to do some additional work.
Now, I kind of grew up in the enterprise sales space, and what I learned was whoever spends the most amount of time with the client wins. Meaning that I would always compete against people who would try and get too much done. And what I would try and do is drag it out as much as I could, come up with as many reasons to be on site with the customer as possible. And because a lot of times we were in what I call the beauty contest type sale. For instance, when you were looking at CRMs, you were probably looking at more than one.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I would, by and large, I agree with that. That's relationship selling to a certain degree. However, our time is limited, and there are only about 200 selling days in a year. So you've got to decide how much am I going to be investing for this particular prospect versus that one, and so forth. However, what you're saying, I'm in violent agreement with. The vendor that invests, let's say, constructive time with the prospect is in a competitively advantageous position.
Right.
And an interesting example of that, this has everything and nothing to do with demos, is the wrap-up from either discovery session or a demo meeting. And traditional wrap up is the salesperson saying either any questions or I'll send you,
right. And I think
hey, I'll send you.
what you're looking for is the missing pieces, the things they want to see more of. Because
Well, and maybe that's actually not where to go next. If you've done a reasonable job of discovery and the customer has seen everything they need to see and they're comfortable, the next discussion item should likely be the vendor saying, "Hey, dear Ms. Customer, shall we talk about how to help you move from your current painful, bloody state through deployment of a tool all the way to the point in time where you are able to declare a small but significant internal win, in other words, a first victory, in production use for the new software." And the customer says, "Well, yes, please, that would be terrific." You're now building a transition vision of how to help that customer move from their current state through deployment to where they're actually enjoying the benefits, beginning to get ROI from the offering, versus the vendor that simply says, "Hey, thanks for your time. I'll send you a proposal."
right.
So who would be competitively in the lead there most typically? It would be vendor number one, who works with the customer, has that continued conversation to develop a transition vision. That's part of what else we teach as well. The demo is a piece of this process, and it leads into and from the other key pieces of discovery, implementation, and so forth.
How about like more advanced things? Because I was always interested in setting either traps where I would show something that the competitor doesn't have, or a lockout, making one feature capability the only thing that matters. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Whenever possible. These are the key elements of outflanking competition. I would suggest that the best place to do that is actually in discovery before you ever do a demo. And why? Well, because if you are able to uncover, as you're just saying, uncover capabilities that you offer that either your competition doesn't offer at all or poorly, in discovery, if you're able to drive the importance of those capabilities, and the customer says, "Yeah, I need to have this," well, then the demo simply becomes one of saying, "Well, we have these capabilities. Here they are. They're fabulous. Hope you enjoy them." And the competitor's locked out at that point, even before the demo, because they don't have those capabilities or they don't execute them sufficiently well. There is a risk in the demo. We just talked about buying it back. How many times have you been in a demo where the salesperson says, "Oh, show them the new magic capability," and the pre-sales guy is going, "No, we don't want to do that," and because it doesn't work or whatever it is, but it gets shown, and the customer then says, "No, we'd never use that." And what you've actually done there is added a negative to that virtual evaluation list because the customer doesn't want to pay for capabilities they don't expect to use. So you got to be careful. We teach a method called a biased question in workshops, which is to you take the capability. If you're in the middle of a demo and you suddenly realize, man, there's a capability here that this customer needs. We didn't bring it up in discovery. I gotta show it in this demo. I gotta let them know. What you do is you take that capability out from behind your back in a virtual sense. You present it sideways. You say, Brian, many of the other customers we've worked with in very similar situations to what you've outlined for us so far found the capability to be able to blah, 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 blah. You describe the capability, and then you offer a reward statement. You say, many of the other customers report that they've been able to save weeks off of their existing workflows and recover tens of thousands of dollars every time this is executed as a result of having that capability. And then you ask the test question. You ask, is this something that might also be useful for you in your practice? And well, there's two possible answers to that question. What are they?
Yes or no.
Yes or no. And if the customer says yes, you say, well, we have that capability. Would you like to see it? And by the way, it almost at that point doesn't matter whether or not they need to see it or not because you've added that to that virtual evaluation matrix. If the customer says, no, we don't really have a need for that, you say, okay, fine. And you put that capability back behind your back. You've not shown it, so you're not at risk of buying it back and wasting time in that demo. That's called a bias question. It's a really elegant way to deal with competitive situations on the fly in the demo.
Excellent. Hey, Peter, I really enjoyed our conversation today. Where do people go to get the book, connect with you, and learn about what you're doing?
They go to Amazon to get the book called Great Demo, and to connect with me, they go to the website that is secondderivative.com. So all spelled out, secondderivative.com, because after all, it's all about acceleration.
So here are my key 3 things that I have as far as demos. And if you follow these 3 things, I think you'll do really good. 1, really start with the end in mind. That's what we talked about. What is the one thing that person really cares about? And prioritize it. And what people tend to do is have 15 people in the room and start showing the whole product from start to finish from the user standpoint instead of the audience's standpoint. What you want to do is actually break it up into multiple demos. That is the power of it, because everybody's asked the same questions. What happens after I give the demo? They ask for a proposal no matter what level of interest they are, because that's work for you and no work for them. So that's the obvious thing that they're going to ask for, and that's probably the worst thing you can do. Why? Because once they have that, they don't call you back. Number 2, think of the demo not as an event, but like dinner. What I mean by that is when you go out to dinner with people, especially clients or even friends, the point isn't the food. The point is the relationship. The point is to converse. It's to catch up. It's to share information. It's to continue that bond, to understand what's important to them, what they care about, and talk over your life, their life, where things are going, from a business standpoint. I didn't mean to just as a friend standpoint. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to become their friends. Well, you have to build that rapport so that they will tell you the truth. And they have to do the divide and concur, because they're not going to tell you the truth in a room full of 14 of their other coworkers. Why? Because they're looking at you as outside the tribe, and you're presenting to their tribe. And they're going to go away and ask each other the questions that they really want. If you get them one-on-one, or 2-on-1, then you're going to get a little bit more honesty, a little bit more openness. So think of it as, meeting somebody for happy hour, meeting somebody for lunch, for dinner, as opposed to showing your product. The objective is not so much to show your product as to start talking about what the product will do for them and how cool it will be. And they're only going to go away with 1 to 3 things. And what ends up happening is people show 50. I'll give you an example. When I was looking at a car a long time ago, the rep took me out and drove to like this development so he could show me every single feature of the radio. And he just overwhelmed me. I was like, I saw so many buttons, and you hit this and touch that, and then you can do this. And it was too much, too fast. What I cared about was how I liked the car. Did the seat feel comfortable? Did I like how it drove? Did it handle well? And I ended up not liking the car at all. It felt like driving a living room. And I don't know why I even got the car. I leased it, so it was only 2 years, and I kind of rationalized it. And I was never really happy with it. And that was my fault, right? But the demo, and then I'll give you another example, was just the inverse, where the guy just gave me the key fob and said, go ahead. And I got into the car and I didn't know how to do anything. So what we need to do is somewhere in between, where you can, drive the car to a safe place, switch seats, get the seat comfortable, let the person adjust like you do when you rent a car. You know that feeling if you ever rented a car where you get into it and you look around, everything's a little bit different than your car, and you just have to adjust the mirror, the heat. How do I get it into reverse? How do I get the radio right, the seat right? Everything the way you need it before you get out on the highway and all of a sudden the mirror is looking in the wrong way. That's kind of the technical sale. This is what we're starting with the demo, not if you look at it as a single event, you're losing an opportunity. You got to think of it as a sequence of demos, of proof of concepts, and depending on the price point, if the price point's high, you break it into as many as possible. If the price point's low, you hit it very quickly to see if they are that interested, if it's a great fit, are they getting it? You constantly got to like show one thing, and do you see how that could work? Did that make sense? Did I some people get confused on this. Some people misinterpret it this way or that way. Then you'll be able to really get a sense of its effectiveness. And if you look at it that way, so that's number 2. Number 3 is don't show everything. Why? Because you need the reason to have the next meeting. And if you show everything, well, what will they say? They'll say, we already saw the demo. What you want to do is, show this to somebody else. Let me show you how that works with this thing. I didn't know you really liked that. I will show you that next week or in 2 weeks. That way you keep the deal moving. You have a reason for reconnecting. Instead, what everybody does is try and cram a 2-day training course into a 45-minute demo. And I can't tell you the number of times people have, just walked out of the room or go, I have no idea what you just showed me. I literally heard that. And we really have to sync up with the person who's given the demo. And depending on how technical the product is, maybe it's too technical for a sales rep to give it. But I've always tried to learn as much of the demo as possible, or at least the key points, so that you can kind of map their requirements, their lockouts, their rules into the demo so that they can see it, touch it, feel it. So you get that transfer of ownership within the demo. So it's critical. And I hope you really enjoyed this episode. To give you an update on things, the courses are going really well. We're coming up in the middle of June. I'd really like to see you in one of the courses for July and August, because those are going to be slow months, and then you're going to have to hit it hard in September. Let me know how you're doing against your number. If you're not crushing it, if you're not getting the meetings that you need to, I've got a course on how to get meetings with pretty much anybody. If your deals are getting stuck or you need to make them bigger or faster, then how to close the complex sale is the course for you. Just check them all out at b2brevenue.com. And then there's a training tab there. Don't be calling me and sending me email. Where's the training courses? b2brevenue.com training. I get like 30 of them a day, and it's hard to keep up with them because I got my own work to do, man. And I really appreciate you listening. Connect up with me on LinkedIn so we can at least converse there when I have time. I do want to help you out, but I'd really like to have you in the course because my time is very limited. Things are getting busy here. And let me know if there's a particular course that you'd like or content that you'd like added. The office hours idea is working out really well. So for each course, every other Friday, we have an hour where I answer questions. So you can send the questions via email to me, and I will answer them all on that Friday. I video or record it on Zoom. I add the screen share to the course, so you get 25 hours of this. And the person who asks the most questions gets the most answers. All questions will be answered. So it's not just a video course. It's like having a coach for a whole year. Somebody who's done this before. Somebody who's passionate and behind you and wants to see you succeed, wants you to get to that 500K or more. There's no limit in sales. What a great job, huh? Okay, also make sure you're checking out my other podcast, the B2B Revenue Leadership Show, for all the leadership stuff. We got Prezi on this week. I had the guy who wrote the Amazon Way, so you can understand Amazon's culture there. Also, Sales Questions podcast. If you have like little questions about sales issues, I try and answer them there. As opposed to the courses where you get an in-depth response about your specific question with a video response and, 25 hours of that, all videotaped for you and put into the class. Also, I started a career advice podcast. That's really for people who want to get into sales or just need career advice, regardless of whether they're in sales or not. The SDR, Sales Development Rep course, is also now in beta. It'll be in production in the next couple of months. So the beta price I'm going to extend to the end of January, but then it's going to probably go up 50 to 100%. It's really, people are diving into that. If you know anybody who wants to get into B2B sales, who wants to work their way up to that 500K mark, get the hell out of retail, selling cars or doing anything that they see no future with. You know, you can buy a car on the internet right now. I mean, that role is dangerous. What you're basically going to turn into is like Best Buy, where people go in and play with the product and then they go and buy it on Amazon. You turn into Amazon's showroom. You know, they're going to go to the dealer, test drive the car, then get online and have it delivered to their house. You know, like a candy dispenser. That's the way it's going. And you know what's next after that? Real estate. You know, low to medium priced houses are going to pretty much put on the internet. And the first thing they're going to try and do is negotiate your commission out of it. So the B2C space is evaporating. It is. But the surprise is that the B2B space is exploding. People are calling the demise of it by AI. It's just the opposite. There's 53,000 openings for sales development reps in the U.S. today, with a base salary in the low to mid 40s, with a target salary, if you can make your number, in the 80s. And if you take this course, you could easily blow that away. And I'll show you how. And you can even outsource it to somebody for $5 an hour or automate it. That's it. Really appreciate you listening. Please tell somebody about the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling. Some people ask, well, how do I get that book? Now, please listen. Pause the podcast, write this down. Don't go calling me or asking me, because I don't have time to write it up. I need you to be proactive about it. All you have to do is take a screenshot of the podcast. Boom. It goes into your camera roll. Then you share that on LinkedIn. Okay. LinkedIn will just allow you to attach an image file. And then you tag me, Brian Burns, and 2 salespeople you know, whoever they are, I don't care who they are, and post it on LinkedIn. Just make sure you're a level 1 connection with me on LinkedIn so I see it and I can send you the book. I'll do it automatically. You don't have to ask me. If I don't happen to send it to you in a day or so, then you can ask me and I will get it to you, I promise. Thanks for listening.